Greetings and salutations, guys. Eric here with my review of Agatha All Along, the latest MCU series, and a couple caveats up top, because first off, this is a review based off the first 4 episodes out of 9. The 4 were sent to press, so this is my impressions of those episodes. And secondly, I'm calling this a non-spoiler review, but I realize what constitutes a spoiler varies so much for people. If it was in any sort of promotional material as far as trailers, commercials, and even interviews for this show, I think it's fair game. So I might be discussing it. So if you're trying to be completely like media blackout on Agatha All Along, well, what are you doing watching this review? But just so you have that warning, all right? So let's dive in. Agatha All Along, arriving 3 years after WandaVision, and both the show itself and the story take place 3 years later, because Agatha Harkness has been under Wanda Maximoff's spell that entire time. The spell is now finally broken, and she wakes up and realizes who she is, but also that she has no powers. So Agatha now is setting out on a quest to get those powers back. She needs a new coven of witches to do that. So she goes about recruiting a new coven, and they set out on the Witch's Road, which is a precarious path that could get them great power, but also has lots of danger along the way. The thing about this show is I'm very excited for it personally, because I love WandaVision. WandaVision is one of my all-time favorite MCU projects, and I do love the MCU, generally speaking. But I think WandaVision is just, stellar. And not only is this a direct spin-off of it, but Jack Schaefer, who created that show, returns here as creator. So it's got that going for it. But I also understand that in 2024, this show probably wouldn't even get a green light, because the MCU in 2021, things were very different for both Disney and the MCU as far as wanting content for Disney Plus, and ordering a lot of projects for sort of peripheral characters that wouldn't happen today, because they're discernibly trying to slow down, and especially on the TV front, they're doing less shows than ever. So I don't think Agatha would get a green light today, but I'm glad it did, because I loved WandaVision. I love the character of Agatha. I love Catherine Hahn. So this is all good stuff for me, but it is an interesting sort of window into the MCU that this even would have gotten ordered in the first place. Now, how was the show? I think it's a pretty good show. That is curtailed by the fact that it's hard not to think of WandaVision as the comparison, because again, spin-off from the same creator, it doesn't reach those heights, at least in these first 4 episodes. But what it does have, I did enjoy, with some, quibbles here and there. The first episode is my favorite, and that's probably because it's the most WandaVision. If you've seen the trailers, you know that we kind of pick up with Agatha, and she is stuck in kind of a TV show scenario, a very HBO crime series type scenario. And like with WandaVision, they do a great job of evoking the thing they're mimicking, down to the opening credits, which have a joke I absolutely adored. And it's just really cool and weird, and exactly, even though we have an idea of what's going on this time, still kind of figuring out exactly what's happening and why, and catching up with Agatha in that way. The second episode to me is the weakest, which is the one that's really kind of setting the plot into motion. I just felt like tonally it's very off. It's maybe a show trying to find its tone. And, it's going for a purposeful, kind of silly, campy level, but I don't think it's really achieving that right. Things get a lot better in episode 3 and 4, as we kind of see what the series will be in these 9 episodes, as they travel on their journey through the Witch's Road and what they might encounter. And I did enjoy sort of the vibe of that. Because WandaVision had such a distinct style with the sitcoms and the replication of that, it's interesting to see what they do here. I don't want to kind of get into the specifics, but they do find a way through witchcraft, through magic, that they can still evoke different eras, different styles, and it's not the same. They're not being brainwashed into thinking that they're TV show characters, but there's still a way to kind of still have the characters switch up their identities, or at least outwardly their looks in very notable ways, at least in a couple episodes, that I absolutely thought was great. Catherine Hahn, again, she's always excellent. She's excellent as Agatha. She knows exactly what she's doing with this character. And I think that to her and Jack Schaefer's credit, they certainly add more nuance and more understanding to the character, but they're trying not to soften her edges too much. So she is still very self-serving, very in it for herself, and there are some very funny moments about how cutthroat she can be. So you don't feel like they just made this character, she's the lead, so now she has to be the good guy. They don't do that at all. Even though you do kind of get to know more about her. And getting to know more about her involves meeting the witch named Rio, played by Aubrey Plaza, who she has a history with. And yes, in this case, history is a very loaded word because there is clearly some sort of romantic past here. And I don't think it's subtext, or maybe that's what they're alluding to. It's pretty blatant in their interaction. It's very fun how they do it, as far as Catherine Hahn and Aubrey Plaza playing off each other. These two characters, things ended very badly, clearly. And so that they are attacking each other physically, and in the way that comic book characters might, but there's still underneath it is that tension. I don't know sort of where they'll go with this as the series progresses. Again, I've only seen the first 4, but I do think it is a very fun dynamic between the two of them that is established in these early episodes. And then you've got the third sort of crucial character here, which is the teen, or just teen, I should say, played by Joe Locke, who, whenever he tries to say his name, it comes out scrambled. Some sort of spell has been cast and no one can hear his real identity.
New question. Who are you? I'm interesting.
Including us, the audience. Now, it's not that hard to guess who this character is if you know the comic books or just looking at MCU history pretty closely. Unless they're going for a huge swerve, but that's okay. It's what is the crux here is his dynamic with Agatha and the fact that he is trying to learn more magic. And he's very eager. She is throwing nothing but snark his way, and how he's kind of trying to let that bounce off him. I actually like Joe Locke a lot in this role. And the chemistry between him and Catherine Hahn is very fun. The rest of the Coven is made up of some really great actresses, including SNL vet Sashir Zamata, Ali An, and the amazing Patti LuPone. In these first 4, I don't think their characters are that nuanced yet. I am hoping as things go on, we kind of get to know them better and get a deeper understanding of them. They're a little bit surface, at least initially, but that's okay. There are still 5 more episodes to go from what I've seen. And then you also have Deborah Jo Rupp returning from WandaVision. Some other faces from WandaVision come back too, but she's the most prominent. She was known as Mrs. Hart in that show, but her real name is Sharon Davis. She gets brought along on this journey in kind of a very funny, silly way, and Deborah Jo Rupp has such a very distinct energy that is always extremely enjoyable to have as part of a series. That is the case here as well. This is a really eclectic show. Returning from WandaVision are Kristen Anderson Lopez and Robert Lopez, who wrote all the songs for Frozen, and for WandaVision, they wrote all those great songs. Well, they're back here for some musical numbers that figure in. Now, they're not characters breaking into song for no reason. There is a plot point that would make these characters sing, but I know it's a big swing, especially for some members of the MCU audience who do not want their characters breaking out into song. Even though they are clever songs, it's different with the TV show themes in WandaVision, right? I think because it was so baked into the TV show format, it's like, oh, that's just a fun song at the beginning. Here, you're going to see your lead characters actually start singing. That might be a bridge too far for many. Though as a fan of musicals, it worked for me. So you've got that on one hand, but then you've also got these really cool creative creature effects. You've got various monsters and demons encountered along the way. I actually noticed Greg Nicotero's name in the closing credits, of Walking Dead fame, but also a million gore-heavy movies. And yeah, I loved how the creatures looked here when they pop up. It's a pretty wild and wacky combination, and I do admire them for kind of going for it like that. It is stuck in the middle as far as this push-pull we get with, well, hey, MCU projects feel too much like the same thing, and you have to watch them all to understand the next one, and I don't like that. And then when some of them become too different, people say, no, that's not being what I want from an MCU project. Plus, it doesn't matter because it's not important to the next thing, which I think is always so silly, because I don't care if this show sets up another show or another movie. It can just be a standalone story about Agatha Harkness. If you say, well, I don't care about Agatha Harkness, okay, but some of us do. Now, again, the approach of this show will also not be for some people, and I do fear the pushback it's going to get from some very obvious parties. Some of them are right here on YouTube, who are going to rant and rave about this show and agendas and woke and various other really played out terms, because this show is about primarily female characters with a very sapphic bent to the 2 main female characters and their gay teenage friend who is the only sort of male character of prominence here. There's going to be some strange cries of where are our straight white male heroes, because we certainly cannot find those in comic book adaptations. Now, it's not a perfect show at all. It has some issues. I do think it's kind of trying to figure itself out in these first couple as far as where it's going to land tonally. But I'm already intrigued by it. I'm already into the character of Agatha, and I like getting to see more of her story here. Though I've liked a lot of the MCU shows, I also agree that a lot of them have the issue of not ending on the best note. So, you got to cross your fingers, as always, and hope that on this one they do land in a great place. I mean, it's certainly Loki ended on a great place, and Secret Invasion was a show that existed. So we'll find out how this one goes. But I am glad it's here. I'm glad it's here at this time and place, which is the only time and place it probably ever would have happened, that Agatha Harkness gets her own series. So those are my take on the first 4 episodes. I will probably check back in as the season progresses to see what I think as the rest of it plays out. If you can like and subscribe, that would be wonderful. That's it for now, guys. Thanks and take care.